Recording has started.
Hi, I would like to welcome you today to our presentation on Sage 100 Contractor, just an overview on how the software works. I am Keith Greeno from Asyma Solutions, and today what we want to do is just take you through a brief tour of the software and just show you how it solves many of the issues for the construction industry and then specific to general contractors, what we're going to be dealing with today. For the profile for the particular company that we're talking about, this is a general contractor, as I said, dealing with mainly commercial work. They do some small remodeling work. The revenue is about $12 million. They're currently using QuickBooks. They sub out most of the work but do have 15 employees, so we'll be taking you through a lot of the details on subcontractor and a little bit on the employment for the 15 employees. Their jobs range from about $1 to $2 million on the bigger ones, and on those larger jobs, they do need to do progress billing with the AIA standards. The smaller jobs, they are doing completion billing just with regular invoices. Their main pain points, and this is why we've actually got this up on the screen right now, which is kind of listed all of the requirements and potential savings that are available to the company. Why we do this is just to make sure that we've got a full listing of all of that information in one spot. And then what we can do is make sure at the end of it that the customer is actually gaining. We want to make sure that they're winning as far as in this general contractor is saving money by putting in a new solution like the Sage 100 Contractor. So their pain points are ease of use and just being able to correct mistakes easily. And so I will show you a lot of the ease of use functionality in the Sage 100, and I'll show you a lot of that stuff. And so what's listed down in here is being able to make changes to the various errors without much effort, and ease of use as far as the software is concerned. Now, we're also talking about eliminating the double entry. So you'll see that there's a significant amount of time on the double entry of payroll that this particular sample company has got, this general contractor. And so we just want to show how we can eliminate that stuff. Also, the double entry on estimates. So they're doing the estimates in the Excel format right now, and then they're having to move it over into the job costing. And because QuickBooks doesn't have really an estimate type or budget position for there, they're having to do a lot of that stuff manually. And so again, $6,000 worth of savings. So then if we keep coming down, the project management is really their key area, and this is where most of their savings are, which this is showing, right? But what we're talking about is that being able to track the current job information, all of that stuff, knowing what's going on with a particular job, and holding our managers accountable by being able to see exactly where they are. And so this is significant. It's about $1,000 a month, and this is quite typical for lots of the smaller general contractors, like not large, but they're not small either. But the point is that the project managers end up spending a ton of time having to do this stuff manually, and their owners or the administration have to spend a lot of time doing that kind of work. Then being able to do a lot of the tracking for subcontractors. And so down in here, you'll see reduced time for subcontractor for projects, related invoice and payments, $500 a month for $6,000. And again, being able to track change orders to the projects and to the subcontractors. And again, another $6,000. And so we'll just take you through how that can work as far as subcontractors. Now, with regard to the jobs as well, lien waivers and being able to track liens on jobs. So we'll just briefly show you how that works with regards to the software and the tracking of change orders in there. And with the subcontractors, being able to track the insurance and certifications on that. And so I will just show you those screens as well. Then percentage of completion, work in progress reporting. And so again, this particular sample company has got manual work in progress reports that are happening right now. Estimated costs around $250 a month. So and all you're doing with this is this: it takes somebody about 10 hours of being paid $25 an hour. So therefore, that's how we're doing these estimates. Okay. Then up above where we're talking about this double entry, again, $500 a month, and this is just moving estimates into jobs, eliminating that double entry, and so we're going to just show how that works. And then what we want to do is just talk about the future ability to handle daily field reports, timesheets, and this from out in the field so that you don't have to do the manual time cards out in the field, daily manual daily field reports, bring them back in and rekey them. We can actually eliminate that as well. So you see right now there's really no benefit to that, but that's just because it hasn't been calculated. I suspect there is a substantial benefit in having to reduce that amount of information as well. So from there, you'll see, so what we've done is we've taken that profile of the company that we're talking about right now, we've put it all into this format so that we can get kind of a view on where we are as far as this company. Now, once we've got to take a look at this stuff, what we do is this. We want to come back and say, okay, what are the modules that are going to help these guys out? We know in the future, and so what we've got is future, current modules, data entry, and third-party stuff. We know in the future eventually they want to add the web access and bringing the information in directly. We know they want the project costing. We know they want receivables, payroll. We know they want general ledger, subcontractor, purchase orders, and payables. When we're looking at it through from this particular vein, you see, again, we also want to talk about the scheduling in here from this project management, project costing. In the project management for our project managers, they want to be able to, and I'm going to show you the visibility into this, all of this information from out of the Sage 100 software, which should reduce that amount down by that $12,000 and hold our project managers accountable. We are going to be showing the estimating screens, and we're going to be going through the parts and assemblies. So what you do is you have parts which links to inventory. This particular company doesn't need inventory, but they could in the future certainly add it. But what they're going to have is parts, and the parts are going to be built into assemblies where you can combine the labor, the equipment, subcontractors all into one, and then generating a takeoff. And from the takeoffs, I'm going to show you how we can export that information into purchase orders, subcontracts, service work orders, proposals, all of this information so that we can reduce a significant amount of time, which we're talking about on that cost benefit. Okay? So the other side is that the scheduling side, and so inside, as long as we're doing tasks with our estimates, then we can actually produce, Gantt charts, and I can show you that briefly as well. And so really that's what we're trying to do is just help with the discussion. We want to make sure that we're focusing on the bigger problems for this particular company and this particular sample company right now. These are the issues that we're going to be addressing one after the other. So let's take a look at the actual software itself. So this is the Sage 100 software. And so what it is we've got to log in. And so we can log in a couple different ways, but we're going to be using Windows authentication right now, which just is saying I logged in as administrator, so that's what thinks I am. Okay. So what happens is it logs in, and I actually have my list of companies that I can log into. I can actually open them up as, with administrator rights or exclusively. If I'm doing some major stuff in the company, I'm just going to open it up with this for right now. So let's just go into the contractor sample. And we've just created this data, and it's got some, minimal stuff in here, but at least it'll give you a good representation of how the software works. So now what happens is this, and I've left that in here on purpose. So it comes up with a reminder just talking about recurring payables and recurring equipment payments that have to be made and processed through the system. And so it reminds you that when you log in because you're the one that actually gets the notifications, okay? And so there is alerts and notifications in this system built in, and we will briefly just talk about that, okay? But I just wanted to bring it up and just show you what it does. So you know that you have to post something, so let's move past it. Okay, great. So now what we've got is this. We've got multiple menus in the system. The main system is here. This is the system menu, and it gives you everything. And if I drill down into this and double click, you see it's got a lot of different entry points that I can actually use. Okay? So this is one way. I can also customize the menu. You see that this one's significantly shorter, right? And the reason why is because down in the customization of this menu, I can actually control whether I got access to it or not. If this particular person doesn't get accounting report, I can just take out, or if they don't get receivables, I just save it to my menu. It drops it off of here. So it doesn't even show up as an item. Yeah, the numbers don't quite go in order anymore. But the point being is that it gives you this and reduces it down. You can also access the software through the Activity Center up above. And so again, what we're looking at is now by activity. So this one is more of a functionality dealing with accounts payables. This is dealing with vendors and purchasing, okay? And so again, in here, I can hit this tab and it brings up a menu. So I can go in here and I can look at invoices and credits from this particular point. I can double click on that and it takes me into the 4-2 payable invoice processing. Or if I come over to here and I go into the payables and I go into the 4-2, guess what it brings up? Exactly the same screen, the payable invoicing. Or if I come into the system down in here and I'm using the other way to do it, which is the workflow processing, I can come in and I can double click on this particular icon and guess what it brings up? Exactly the same processing form and entry form. So what you've got is this ease of use as far as the system on being able to access your data through the menu screen, through the My Menu if you want to do it that way, through the actual activity bars, through the activity menu, or through the process maps or these workflows that are generated down in here. And these are customizable, so you can add your own stuff into them if you want. Okay? Great. So now let's just talk about some of the other stuff which is in here. And so the bottom line is you can see that we can deal with it in projects. And so if I'm looking at, here's all of the flow for projects, and here's my report that would tie into projects. And here I'm dealing with payroll and what's happening with payroll and the various stuff. So all of that information I can get multiple ways, and what it is just depends. Everybody's a little bit different, and so it gives us different access points for different people. Okay? So here's one of my favorite parts of the software, and that's on the dashboard. And so this dashboard, and so again, I've logged in as the administrator, so I'm getting all of the information about the particular company. But I can have this set up for various supervisors so they only get the information that they require. And I can easily add or remove this information anytime I want by just coming in here and saying, by the way, with the projects, I want to add something or take something away. I'm not going to change it for right now, but see, I can do this at any time and save it to the system. Here's another important thing as far as ease of use with the software, and that's the help is always available. So wherever you are, if you press F1 or you go into the help if it's on the particular menu screen, you'll see I get context-sensitive help, which gives me a full definition on what's going on with the software. Again, down here it's telling me how to add or remove the content of dashboards. So all of that information is available anytime in the software, no matter where you are. Okay? All right, good. So let's just go back through just a touch and let's take a look at some of the dashboard information. And so again, what I've got is you can see I've got 18 alerts that are up here, all the alerts that are on the system, unread alerts. And so what it's doing is it's just bringing up all of those alerts. And you can see that I've got this warning about what's supposed to be going on. And so all of these things I can build up in the software in a particular field over in the utilities here for alerts. But I can alert on various things, whether bills aren't paid, whether receivables aren't paid, whether whatever's happening. I can set up an alert for a particular criteria, and then it will show up for me to just help me do my jobs. What it is, it's kind of like push reporting. So instead of me having to go into report and actually generate it, it will pull it up on my behalf. Okay, and so I can get that on these dashboards. The other thing is outstanding change orders and what's going on with them. There is none available on this particular sample data, but they would all be listed here if there was anything. Now, here's one of the other things, so cash positioning. And so understand, with one of our requirements back in the software, we actually had, right, a requirement that says able to track cash. This company was having issues with that, and they figured it was costing them about $3,000 a year, $250 a month. Well, let's just take a look at what the software is doing back here again. Okay, in the cash positioning, what it's doing is it keeps track of your total cash, your total receivables, your total liabilities, giving you a cash position current. If I wanted to see what's going on, I can double click on that and it drills right down into the detail on this. If I want to see what's going on with that general bank account, I can see what's going on with the general bank account, right? And so the point is that all of that information is available to you on the screen in one spot where you can see what's going on with your receivables, right? So here's my outstanding receivables, here's what's going on, right? And so I can go through, drill down into the various reports and get all of the information about my cash positioning. And I believe this is solving that $3,000 problem that company has got with regards to monitoring cash position for them. Okay, and this is available just on one of the dashboards. It's built right into the system, so it could certainly solve a lot. Now, let's just go a little bit further because we can also keep track of receivables and payables. Now, I mean, this is kind of ridiculous, this $235,000 overdue, but that's because we're dealing with sample data. We're in 2017, and this data is back from 2015. So bear with me with it. But the point being is that if I wanted to take a look and say, okay, progress billing number 3, build in here, double click on that particular item, it's going to take me right down to that progress billing amount and see what's going on. Okay? So I can drill into any of the information to see where I am and get all of that tracking at my fingertips. Okay? All right. So same thing with the payables. We won't go for that right now. And I'm going to leave all of this project costing and job costing information until later because I just want to dig into that a little bit more detail. But one of the other things as far as ease of use is this. So what we've got is multiple ways into the program, right? We've already talked about that, whether you're in an activity or whether you're in a menu format, right? We've also got the particular dashboard, and I'm going to be using this exclusively as we're going through because I think it's a great way for people to be able to comprehend what they're looking at, drill down into the information so they don't get lost in the details, okay? But the bottom end is it certainly helps a lot. Now, the other way that I want to just talk about just for a second is on the error corrections, because one of the problems with the company that we're having, that this sample company, is making adjustments to the particular data. So I'm going into the system, and all I'm going to do is that you can see no matter when I'm entering any of this information, it's saying, by the way, record a number. What it's saying is, what's the new record number? Now, I can do a search by hitting the down arrow, and it brings it back up. And so in these entry screens, and this is everywhere, it puts a little asterisk beside the required information, but this is one that was here before. And let's say that this is wrong. There's something wrong with this particular item. This acoustical ceiling for the subcontractor is wrong for $4,500. So what I can do is I can either hit go to source, right? Or I can double click on this, which is saying, by the way, I'm attempting to edit this stuff, right? You sure? Go to source now? Yes, I want to go to the source. So even if I don't know ease of use, I can either hit go to source or I can double click and it's going to take me to the information. Let's say that the pricing was wrong on here. So I can double click on this stuff and say, hey, and you're going, you were attempting to edit it because this is supposed to be locked. And you're going, yeah, I still want to do that. I'm administrator, remember? I've got access to everything. I'm going to change this to $4,000. You come back and say, great, got it, it's all done, right? I come into the system at the top, you see it's got all of these icons. The one I want to pick is the save. Okay. So in the save, what it's going to do, by the way, this is posting to a different period. Remember, I'm in 2017. I don't know what the heck date this was before, back in 2015, but we're just going to save it, right? So, yep, we want to save that stuff. By the way, the job cost no longer equals anymore because this was job costed, okay? We've got all of this stuff happening. So what it's done is now it's going into the job costing and it's saying, by the way, the ledger total is $4,000 and the job total down at the bottom here is $4,500. I need to change this to make them both balanced. I'm going to quit right now, but I could come in here and just change this stuff to $4,000 and the whole thing is going to change. Okay? I'm going to leave it for right now, but point is that very, very easy to come in here, make changes to the system. It allows you to do it. It's making sure that you understand that there's repercussions in the accounting system, and so as long as you're aware of what you're doing when you're doing it, the system's going to keep track and going to allow you to do it if it's able. Okay? So the ease of use as far as doing data entry and changes to items after the fact is fairly easy with this system. I believe you'll all agree. Okay, so now let's just talk about one of the other issues that customer had, and that's that multiple entry. And so we pointed out a couple different things, the estimating, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But one of the places I just wanted to take you through right off the start here is in the payroll. So now understand, in the payroll, we've got a whole lot of information, and I remember I can come in through here or wherever I want. So let's maybe just take a quick peek at the employees just so that you can see this information for a second. So in the employees, because this company only had 15, right? And it's saying, okay, and what's the name of it? And I can bring up, all right, here's this Wilson, right? And so I've got the person here. I've got some information. I've got some earnings information, right? I've got some payroll information. I got licensing information. So this is if they've got, like, let's say they've got CPR or something else, all of those certificates. I can track and have the expiry date, so I can track and get notifications on that. Training, I can track all of the training, get notifications when it's next due, right? I can keep track of a little bit human resource information with regards to, last pay raises, social insurance number, and that kind of information, compensation information, direct deposit information for your banks, right? All of that information is being tracked inside of the system. But the thing I wanted to show you right away is this daily payroll entry, because let's just talk about the integration of this system. And so what we're doing here is, let's pick on this same person again. So I can put a description in. There isn't one that's available. Let's say that this is regular time card or something, but I can put in a service work order, or I can put in a job. So I want to put in a job right now. I'm going to put some information for this walking shoes, right? I can track equipment repairs in this time card. I can have it tracked to various phases if there's phases available. This job does not have, but if I've got my job broke into phases, I could do it, and my cost codes. So what am I doing with this? Well, I'm doing concrete work, and I'm working on the slab prep. So I can keep going right across this whole screen, but you can see that what I'm doing is this, is that I'm building a time card, right, for this particular person, right? Well, 50 hours might be a little bit much. I can do piecework if I wanted to. How many pieces am I doing? I can put it to various departments. I can change the pay rates if I want. But what it's doing is it's taking all of this information and posting it to the job that I need it to. Now, without having to do anything, I can hit another button down in here, which is going to create a time card from this daily field entry. What it is doing is saying, okay, if I'm billing out every 2 weeks, what it would do is make sure that the start and end date is for that particular pay period, on what the check date is going to be on that end of that pay period. So I can do all of that information from right here and create the time card without having to do any additional entry. Okay? So what we're doing is we're reducing that double entry of information into the project costing, the job costing system, and having to enter it back into payroll, and I'm eliminating it by only having to enter it once. This can further be automated, and I'll show you that at the end, where you can actually collect all of this information from out in the field, where you don't have to actually enter it back in the back office. Okay? So I don't want to save any of those changes. But what we're doing is this. I believe what we have done is we have solved this particular issue right in here, which is talking about eliminate the double entry of items into payroll, which is $6,000. So we signed off the $3,000. I believe that is a yes. And we signed off the double entry of the payroll and job costing, because we only have to do it once. Okay, so now let's start focusing on some of the other stuff, which is down in here. And we're going to leave the estimates to a little bit later. We're going to talk a little bit more about the project and just being able to track and assign stuff in more detail as we go into the jobs, which is the next step. Okay, so let's go back to the software itself. And so let's just close this down so we don't get too many things opened up. Okay, and let's go back to our dashboard, because as I said, I like to use it just as a place to kick off, to drill down into the various jobs. So let's go into the Woods Elementary, and I'm just double clicking on that, going into the contract. And when I double click on the contract, what it's going to do is actually open up the actual job itself for me. Okay, so haven't had to do anything, haven't had to go look for anything. All I did is I just grabbed it off my dashboard. Okay, so what the heck is this stuff tracking? So let's talk about it. So what we've got is we've got a job, and the job is attached to a client. So we've got a receivable that this is attached to, okay? We've got an address which comes in from the client. We can have PST, GST. That will be coming from the customer, or we can override it, right? We've got the due dates, the discount rates, which is all coming in from the customer information. And we can have holdbacks available for these particular ones, and we can change it for the job. Okay, we have an income account that we set. Now we can also control whether we're doing work in progress accounting or we're not doing it. So it just turns on, and what it does is it posts the expenses over to WIP instead of posting them over into the expenses. Okay, well, we can just click this to do that. The other thing is we can also track a whole bunch of contacts and personnel in here, right? We can have email addresses if we're emailing information out. And the other thing, which is really important, well, just before we move on, you can see we've also got like the architect, the lender. We can have user defined in here. We can have who's the estimator, the salesperson. Lots of information can be tracked in the contact and personnel for this particular project. The other thing that's important is the project dates. Really what we want to focus on as a general contractor is making sure that we build the building on time, on budget, so that everything is the way that it's supposed to be. The other thing is we can keep track of all of the liens in filing. I know that that was one of the other issues, and so you can keep track of all of those due dates in here as well. Okay? All right, so that's general information about the particular project, which is great. Okay? But now let's go into a little bit more detail about this particular item, right? And so what's this bid thing? So we can do it a couple different ways. Up in the options, you'll see we've got all of these icons. We can use control keys if we want to, right? You can also see we've got these lien waivers. And so maybe while I'm in here, let's just take a look at these lien waivers. So understand there isn't any for this particular one, but it would all be tracked and when it's being, signed off and the due dates. Or if I go into the lien information, you see now what is tracking is since the lender, the contractor, the owner, all of that information is tracked in here, okay? So if that information is required, then you can track it all inside the project. So let's just talk about these options. Again, we can access these screens from up above here, right, with the hot function keys over here or down on the bottom. So let's just click on bid items. And what it allows you to do is take a job and divide the bid so that for the customer themselves, they want to have it broke down into these following component parts. So therefore, you can set it up so when you're doing the estimate, it shows up in here. So all of this stuff is tracked so you can actually prepare the proposal in the format that the customer requires. Okay? That's what it's doing. So the other thing that it's doing is we can have phases. Now this particular job doesn't have one, but let's say the school happened to have 2 rooms or happen to have 2 buildings that's being built. You might want to divide it in yourself internally into multiple phases, as building 1, building 2, or whatever. But you can have all of that set up. You can see that we can actually control the holdbacks and stuff and a bunch of information about that particular phase. Okay? So we can have the job not only set up as a main job with all the information, we can have it divided up by bid items and by phases. Now, the other more important stuff, and this is dealing with budgets, okay? And so all of this budget information, again, with our estimating tools, which we're going to show you a little bit later, all of this information can flow straight from the budgeting straight into the jobs, saving a significant amount of time. But in this budget information, you see it's tracking the hours for the labor components. It's tracking material dollars. It's tracking the labor dollars. It's tracking the equipment dollars, right? It's tracking subcontractor dollars. It's tracking other stuff, building permits, all of the other miscellaneous stuff that you would have included in there. So all of that information is included in your budgets for full tracking so that you can get actuals, right, to budget comparisons so that you're doing a lot of that work in progress type reporting that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on as well. Okay, purchase orders. So now this particular job didn't have any purchase orders attached to it, but if it did, it would have them all listed down in here, and you'd be able to go. So they must have just generated the information straight in as payables, okay, for this particular job. Subcontractors. Now this job has got a lot of subcontractors that they do the work for, or that they do work with. So the bottom line is that we have all of this information about subcontractors here. But one of the important parts to take a look at on here is that inside of here, you'll see that, remember, one of our requirements for the subcontractors was being able to not only track what was going on, right, original contract, any change orders. The system keeps track of all of that stuff right inside of each one of the jobs, okay? So let's say I wanted to just drill down into this Watkins Plumbing and see what the heck's going on, right? And I got open invoices, right? And so what's happening is that I've got all of this information about the job at my fingertips from here. I also have the outstanding change orders that are available for this particular guy, right? I'm keeping track of all of the, financial information about them, right? So the T58-teens that have to be filed with the government, right? Whether they're GST IDs and all of that stuff that has to be tracked in there, whether they're payment amounts and how you're actually paying them, right? Certificates. So it's tracking all of the loan, or not so much loan information, but the insurance information, right? So if we just go out of here, go into another one, hopefully this one's got a little bit of information in it. And yes, it does. So see, contractor's license when it expires. And if it expires, right, don't just give me a warning, plus don't pay it, right? So what it's going to say is, I'm going to give you a warning that it's happening, plus I'm not going to allow you to pay it until this thing is current. So if the guy says, I got my workman's compensation, and he goes, yeah, I'm right up to date, and you see that it's expired in here, until he gives you a new certificate, right, it gives you that verification, you don't need to put that in here, and you can stop payments, or you will stop payments for this particular guy. Okay, so lots of information being tracked on subcontractors. And so again, what we're talking about is this, is that being able to solve some of those problems as far as the control. And remember, what we were talking about on our requirements back in here for our subcontractors is reduce time in tracking the projects by subcontractor with invoices and payments. Well, we've got all of that information at our fingertips now. And being able to track change orders by project by subcontractor, it's also at our fingertips. So we're solving both of these two issues, I believe, with that particular functionality. Okay, let's go a little bit further. So now, contracts we looked at, so let's take a look at change orders. So now what we wanted to do is we've got a different toilet for the teacher's lounge. They want a fancier toilet. They don't want the standard one. So we've got an estimate that we've got built, $685. We know that there's overhead 10%. We got profit at 20, right? We wanted 904. What they approved was $800. All showing in here right at our fingertips again for this particular job. We know what's going on. Not only is that all in there, but we've got the budget and subcontractor amount, so we know there's our $585 for the Watkins Plumbing, right? Let's double click on it, right? And what it'll do is it's going to take me down, it won't take me down into there, but what it will do is it actually gives you all of that information, and we can look at it in the other screen. You'll see we've got another $100 worth of demolition on that particular job as well. Okay, so it's tracking all of the information that you need about the change orders as well, whether it's been approved, not approved, who approved it, what's going on, what's the dates on all of the approval, right? All of that stuff is there. Okay, invoicing. So let's just take a look. I got to close this, sorry, and we're going to go into the invoicing for the Wood School. So now, with this particular sample company, what we wanted to talk about for this general contractor is two different types of invoicing. So we got progress invoicing, and so if we go to the contract invoice, we're going to come in here, and now we've got the contract invoice that brings it up, right? And this can be billed at the completion of the job or whenever you want it. Also, we can do progress billings, okay? And so let's just get out of this job for a second, and let's see if it lets me into this other one. Yes, it does. Good. Into the invoices. Great. See, now we're talking progress billings. And so again, what it's doing is it allows us to do both the completed contract billing, or so for small jobs for this general contractor that we're talking about, you can do the billing, or you can do progress billing. What it's doing, it's tracking the holdbacks, all of that same information, taxes is all being tracked. Okay? Good. So both of those are being signed off. What else have we got in this system when we're talking about it for the particular software? Payments. Like, what's going on with our payments? Who's paid? When are they paid? Where are we at with the job? You know, I can again go in and look at any of this information as far as what's going on with it. Okay? So there's all of the information about the particular payments. And then the other stuff is, where is the contract as far as a summary? So original, change orders, all of that information. Remember, we changed from the one that had the change order to the other Williams Post Office, which doesn't. Okay? Good. All right. So really what happens is this, is that with this particular format, and what we're talking about being able to do is you can see unbilled jobs. You can see what's going on with your jobs. You can look at all of the jobs. You can change the jobs that are in here, not in here. Show me all jobs or whatever, right? So you can control what's on these dashboards for each one of the individuals, right? The supervisors mainly, and they will have full access into the information that they've got. A little later on, I'm going to show you the service and operation, which gives you similar type stuff out in the field as well. And so really with that type of information at your fingertips, right, project managers are going to really have a hard time saying, I didn't know. I can't be held accountable because you guys were putting in the information so late into that QuickBooks system that I didn't know where my project costs were. Or because of the way that QuickBooks runs their job costing system, you were doing that way after when you had to do payroll, so therefore I didn't have my real-time information. How could I possibly know what was going on? The bottom line is that with the visibility that we're giving you, I believe we are solving this $12,000 item for you as well. Okay? So let's move to the next one. Let's talk about, all right, let's try to solve what can we do with this work in progress reporting. Again, let's go back into the accounting system, right? And so let's just look at projects through here, right? And so let's look at the overbilling and costs. And so if I'm looking at this particular report and I want to go into job 186, job 186, and I'm going to preview the job, excuse me. What it does is this, it's giving you what your costs are, what your budget were, which means 58%. So you're saying if you've incurred $263,000, you're 57% done on this thing. Your contract amount was for $500, therefore you should have earned this much in revenue. Okay, you billed this amount, you're billing, right? How much under? Well, you're 61,000 under billed because you could have billed out 513. Now, maybe there's a problem with the architect. Maybe you haven't got sign off for one of the pieces. Maybe you just delivered a big piece of equipment that's in here. But the bottom line is, what happens is, this is giving you most of the information that you need to do your work in progress reporting. Okay? Now, another way that you can, and I really actually like this report as far as the project management report. And here it is here. So a couple different ways. Like I said, I can come in here and actually do it from the bonding report from here, or I can just grab it from right here. Right? And so this bonding report, again, what I want to do is just go into job 186. I could just select them all if I wanted to, but let's just limit it down. So what we're doing is this. We're giving you, current contract, current budget, the profit, see all of the information. Again, that 57% complete, right? What's the current profit? What's the amount earned? All of it is here for you. And so realistically, what it is doing is it is eliminating that requirement to have to do all of those manual calculations where you're calculating your budget to the estimates and what the amounts billed are, so that you can actually take a look and find out what your real work in progress and deferred revenue amounts are. Okay? So I believe what this is doing is solving that other issue in here where we're talking about, and what is the work in progress for this $3,000, and it's also being able to track the job progress and related invoicing for over and under billings, right? It's available on our dashboard, plus it's available as a report, so I believe both of these two are signed off. So what we solved is that one, that one, that one. We've got these two done, right? So what we're going to do is have to focus on now the estimating piece, and let's go after that and try to see whether we can eliminate that double entry as well. Okay, so back into the actual software itself. All right, so now let's just press this a little bit. Let's go into estimating. Now again, I can come into estimating through the dashboards, right, or through the various means. What I wanted to do is talk about, remember, we've got parts and assemblies, and then we've got the takeoffs happening down in here. So I'm going to start with just the takeoffs because we don't have a lot of time on this webinar right now. But let's go into the Williams Post Office and just double click on it. What it does is it brings up the takeoffs. Now it's bringing up with bid items are 0. I'm just going to go into, let's say, site work, and you see here's all of the information about the site work as far as the estimate that was originally done. If I want to add to this, right, I can come in here and just say, okay, listen, what else do I want to do? Well, let's see, I'm going to build a frame window. You see, it's just added all of the same information, right? See, this one, it's not got all of this extended stuff. It's not been completed, but the problem is that I can still make the changes to it. So the problem is this, is that you can format the software so that it is built into bid items, so that this is the way that your customer wants to see the particular estimate, and it will actually do the full proposals for you from here. Okay? It'll also break it down into phases, which is the way that you guys might understand it for your job if we're dealing with two different buildings, or we have a steel contractor, and what they like to do is do the estimate by floor. You know, how much steel goes on to the first floor, the second floor, the third floor. And so they just keep track of all of the information that needs to be available for each one of the floors. Okay? But you can set this up yourselves. And so when you do that, what's happening is inside this takeoff, it's actually keeping track on, you know, what's going on, right? The recaps, there's nothing in here right now, but, you know, you've got all your bonding information, you've got your bid summaries, it's all here. And so from this takeoff, here's where the magic really begins, right? Because this is going to take, and it should save you a little bit of time because it's doing lots of the calculations by the various units, whether it's lineal foot, whether it's each, whether it's ton, whether it's, you know, poundage, kilograms, whatever. But you describe what the units are in here, okay? And so it does all of the calculations for you. In a spreadsheet, these tend to not be accurate. They tend to be always changing because you might delete a line and all of a sudden it's not adding it. In the estimating packages, it's always available. And there's other estimating packages also available which are even more complex and more detailed than this one. But we're going to focus on this one for right now. So what it does is it does the takeoff as we just shown for this particular area. But what we can do is we can export that into a budget. I got to save the takeoff first, but what it'll do is it moves all of this information across. So if we go back to that processing flow that we were looking at before in the estimating, what it's doing is parts to assemblies to the takeoffs, and then what you're doing is once you've got the takeoff done, it'll build purchase order subcontracts and all of this information as far as the project itself, which then moves it over into here for us to do the project management itself as project managers. Okay? So let's go back to the estimate again. So what it's going to do is it's going to move, you know, change orders. You can do it by job or phase. Proposal, you can do it by job code or billing item. You see billing item because guess what? That's what the customer wants to see. Purchase orders can be generated however you want. Maybe it's by job phase because you're doing it by floor and I don't want to order all my steel at once. Or maybe it's a special change order. All of that information is available very, very easily inside the system without having to rekey the information. So what I'm saying is this, is that the bottom end is that this is saving what I believe that $6,000 issue, which is having to double enter the information from your estimates, which in the sample company was Excel, over into the jobs themselves. Okay? Okay. So let's deal with this other one. And now we're just talking time. So we looked a little bit about, you know, reducing errors by doing the time entry out in the field, right? Eliminating the timesheets, and we can do that. So again, when we were doing the entries in the system, in the payroll that I showed you before, and let me just back away from here so I don't want to save this. I'm going to go into the payroll, into the daily time cards. So I can generate, right, those daily time cards that I showed you before that we were reducing the time for every individual after the fact. And so really this is, what happens is I got a manual time card and I'm coming back in and I'm just keying in that time card on what the guy had says to me. Okay? And this is going to be more accurate because really what I'm doing is I'm actually selecting and making sure that the phase is correct, making sure that the, you know, if there is phases, if the cost code is correct, so it's got to tie into it, right? So I can be more accurate with the information and the rates because it's doing real-time calculations of this correctly, okay? So we know that the job information is going in there correct, which is going to reduce time. We're going to create all of the time cards straight from these daily time sheets, okay? Which means I can do this by your payroll cycles, okay? Which is going to make it way more accurate. I don't have to re-enter it again. You see, I can keep track of regular time, overtime, right? Premiums, all of that information can be tracked in this system, right? Right down at the bottom, it's just telling you all of that stuff. So great, okay, we've got all of that. What's it doing? Okay, the bottom end is, I believe what it's doing is solving these problems. It's reducing the errors. You know, maybe it's more than 3,000 for your company. Maybe it's more than 3,000. But what it's doing is it's making sure that the jobs are right, the costing is right. Now, this is even going to get better when we go out into the field because we're closer to when the actual transactions are happening. So I don't have this up on the demo. I don't have service and operation in our sample company. But if we go to just one of the presentations that we've done in the past, and I'm just going to show you some of this stuff because here's the type of formats that you're going to end up with on your smartphones or wherever. And so if you look at this, here's your field employees out there doing the entry. And so this would be like for this sample company, our small jobs where they're out sending 1 or 2 people out. So they're going to say, here, I got one assignment, double click on it, opens up, says you got to go and do such and such. It starts tracking your time for you, right? All of this time is going to go straight into that daily time card for you without you having to do anything else. Okay. Now, if you've got approval steps, and I'll show you that in just a second, right? So the employee is taking that. I can have all of this approvals happening out in the field as well by your supervisors. Okay. So nobody has to come back into the office. You can see it's tracking, the pay. It's tracking overtime. It's doing all of the information that you guys need for your jobs from out in the field. Okay. Also, you'll see that it's got the little tab in here called dashboards. So from out in the field, your project managers are also going to be able to go in and get more information about the job, similar to the dashboards that we were looking at before. Not as detailed, but it will give you a lot of that information from out in the field. The other thing is it does daily field reports. And so you're going, okay, well, what's that talking about? Because we're dealing with technology, which keeps track of, and you'll see that all of this fancy stuff, yes, you can get schematics. All of this information is available out in the field with the service and operation, approvals and sign-offs by customers or by the supervisors, right? So time review, come in here, look at it, and just approve it. So it date time stamps it. So you know that the supervisors have approved it. Nobody loses any time cards anymore. Think about that flexibility. But the main thing I want to just bring up, just before we go on to the end of the session here, is on the daily field report. Because in here, you see this is available and collectible out in that field as well. And so on those tablets, it knows what the temperature is because it's got Google. It's got all of that information. It's got the weather. It knows it's sunny. It knows what the date is. It knows whether you had a meeting. And so you can put incidents, meeting information, order information, all of the information about employees, subcontractors, who showed up, who didn't show up. So all of that information is collectible out in the field. And what it does is it actually reduces your liability significantly because you're really keeping that daily diary of each one of your jobs out in the field without you having to do it manually, okay? And so this is just something I wanted to show you. I know that I didn't have it available, but understand that this is the functionality that I think most companies are going to want to move to in the short term. You need to build the foundation first. The foundation is being basically the starting data. And so if you look at our particular flow chart that we're talking about, this service and operation piece is something that will be added in the future, okay? We want to put it on there, so understand that it's capable. Yeah, we can add service receivables. Yes, we can add inventory. Yes, we can add equipment tracking. Yes, we can add, the other pieces that you might need. In the project management itself, yes, we can add document management. So we start tracking, the transmittals, submittals, daily field reports, as we just talked about, out in the field. So as you add these component parts, as you get more mature with the various software, you're going to save more money. And so all we need to do is before we do that, we want to make sure that we've taken a look and say, okay, if you want this, is there a value to you in doing the service and operation, starting to collect time out in the field? If there is, right now we're showing 0, right? I want to make sure that there's a dollar amount for you. So I'd like to thank you for that. And if you have any questions or want to go into more detail, please feel free to give me a phone call. Thanks.